somewhere in Inner Mongolia. There's a city built for 1 million people. It has apartment towers, shopping malls, government buildings, museums, and a sports stadium. It has wide boulevards, manicured parks, and streetlights that turn on every evening. Almost no one lives there. This is Ordo's Kangbashi, the most famous ghost city in China. But it's far from the only one. Across the country, entire metropolises stand nearly empty. Brand new cities waiting for residents who may never come. This is the story of the biggest construction gamble in human history. How China built hundreds of cities on speculation. Why most experts thought it was insane. And why the truth might be more complicated than either the critics or the defenders want to admit. To understand China's ghost cities, you have to understand China's growth model. For decades, the country's economy has been driven by construction, building things, lots of things, as fast as possible. This made sense at first. China was urbanizing at an unprecedented rate. Hundreds of millions of people were moving from farms to cities. They needed places to live, places to work, places to shop. The construction boom met a real need. But construction also became something else. A way for local governments to generate revenue. A way for officials to demonstrate achievement. A way for the entire economy to keep growing even when other sectors slowed down. Here's how it worked. Local governments in China control land. They can sell development rights to private companies. This generates enormous revenue. Revenue that funds public services, infrastructure, and the careers of ambitious officials. The incentive is obvious. Sell more land, make more money, build more things, look more successful. And if the things you build don't immediately fill up, build more anyway. The growth numbers still look good. The revenue still flows. The promotions still come. Ordo's Kangbashi began in 2003. The local government saw opportunity. The region had coal and natural gas. Money was flowing in. Why not build a new city to capture that wealth? The plans were ambitious. A full-scale urban center for 1 million residents. Modern architecture. Cultural facilities. Everything a 21st century city should have. Construction began immediately. By 2010, the basic infrastructure was complete, and the city was empty. Photographs went viral. Western journalists descended. Ordo's Kangbashi became the symbol of Chinese overbuilding, proof that the whole system was a house of cards about to collapse. Except it didn't collapse. At least, not immediately. What the early reports missed was that Chinese ghost cities don't work like Western real estate. In the West, you build when there's demand. In China, you build to create demand. You build infrastructure first and expect people to follow. This sounds crazy by conventional economics. But China has done crazy things before and made them work. The entire export manufacturing sector was built on speculation. The high-speed rail network was built before ridership justified it. Sometimes building it first actually works. Ordo's Kangbashi today is no longer empty. It's not full either. Current estimates suggest around 300,000 residents, far short of the million planned. But it's a functioning city. People live there. Businesses operate. Schools are open. Was it a success? That depends on your timeline and your definition. By Western standards, building a city for 1 million that only attracts 300,000 is a failure. By Chinese standards, a city that eventually fills up, even partially, might be considered a delayed success. The problem is that Ordo's Kangbashi might be the best-case scenario. For every ghost city that gradually fills, there are others that remain stubbornly empty. And the scale of the building is hard to comprehend. Estimates vary. But credible analyses suggest China has enough empty housing to accommodate over 60 million people. That's roughly the population of Italy, sitting vacant, exposed to weather, slowly deteriorating. Some of these units will eventually find occupants. Young couples saving for years to afford a home. Families relocating from rural areas. Investors looking for somewhere to park money. But many won't. China's demographics are shifting. The population is aging. Birth rates have collapsed. The endless flood of rural migrants that justified the building is slowing to a trickle. The demand that was supposed to fill these cities may never materialize. This brings us to the real estate crisis that's been unfolding since 2021. Companies like Evergrande, once among the world's largest developers, have defaulted on their debts. Construction projects have halted mid-build. Home buyers who paid for apartments that were never finished are refusing to pay their mortgages. The ghost cities are part of this larger picture. They represent capital that was invested in hopes of returns that may never come. Resources that could have been used for other things. An entire economy oriented around building for building's sake. Critics say this was always inevitable, that you can't build your way to prosperity forever, that eventually the bill comes due. And they're not wrong. But defenders point out that China's growth over the past 40 years has consistently defied Western predictions of collapse. Every time experts said the model was unsustainable, China found a way to keep going. Maybe the ghost cities will fill up. Maybe the debt will be managed. Maybe this is just another bump in a long road. The honest answer is that no one knows. China is running an economic experiment at a scale never before attempted. The ghost cities are part of that experiment. The results aren't in yet. What we can say is that the ghost cities reveal something important about how China thinks about development. The approach is fundamentally different from the West. In Western economies, the market is supposed to allocate resources. You build when there's demand, because building without demand means losing money. Individual decisions by millions of actors determine what gets built and where. In China, the state plays a much larger role. Development is strategic as much as economic. You build cities not just because people want to live there today, but because you want people to live there tomorrow. You shape the country's geography to fit your political vision. This approach has strengths. It enables long-term planning that democracies struggle with. It can build infrastructure before the demand exists, creating opportunities that market-based systems would miss. It can direct resources to regions that would otherwise be neglected. But it also has weaknesses. Without market signals, it's hard to know when you built too much. Without democratic feedback, it's hard to correct mistakes before they become catastrophes. The concentration of power that enables rapid building also enables rapid waste. The ghost cities also tell a human story that often gets lost in the economic analysis. Consider the workers who built these cities. Millions of migrants who left their villages to pour concrete and install windows in places they would never be able to afford. They built someone else's future while their own remained uncertain. Consider the local residents who were displaced. In some cases, entire villages were demolished to make way for new cities. Farmers who had lived on the same land for generations were relocated to apartment towers they didn't ask for in cities they didn't want. Consider the homebuyers who put their life savings into apartments that might never be completed. In China, homes are typically purchased before they're built. You pay for a blueprint and trust that the developer will deliver. When developers collapse, those payments disappear. These human costs don't show up in GDP figures. They don't feature in debates about whether China's growth model is sustainable. But they're real. Behind every empty tower is a chain of decisions and consequences that affected real people. So what happens next? The most likely scenario is managed decline. China's government has enormous resources and has shown willingness to intervene when necessary. They'll probably bail out some developers, complete some projects, demolish others, and gradually work through the excess inventory over decades. Some ghost cities will fill up as China's urbanization continues, even if more slowly than before. Others will remain monuments to overbuilding, slowly decaying until someone decides what to do with them. The dream of endless growth through endless building is probably over. China's leaders seem to recognize this. They're talking about quality over quantity, about sustainable development, about shifting away from real estate dependency. Whether they can actually make that shift is another question. The entire political economy is oriented around building. Local governments depend on land sales. Banks depend on real estate loans. Workers depend on construction jobs. Changing direction means disrupting all of these relationships. The ghost cities stand as warnings, not just about economic misallocation, but about the hubris of planning at scale, about the gap between vision and reality, about what happens when you build for the future and the future doesn't cooperate. They're also strangely beautiful. These empty cities with their quiet streets and unused parks. Monuments to ambition in a country that has never lacked for ambition. Whatever happens next, they'll remain as artifacts of an extraordinary era in human history. If you want to explore more stories about cities and the forces that shape them, stick around. I'll see you in the next one.